up? Bree Franklin here, the host of Undefeated, and we are bringing back another episode. Today's is entitled Financial Trauma Fallouts. And y'all, I just want to warn you now properly. Don't say I didn't tell you. We're getting into some very serious, heartfelt terrain. So you might hear some spicy language at times because this is very much coming from the heart with my whole chest. So just to go ahead and give y'all a little bit of context and overview for today's episode, it actually couldn't be happening at a more timely point in my life personally. So if you're new here, welcome. If you've been around, welcome back. You may have heard me share my student debt story that basically preceded this whole movement that I've been leading to wipe out predatory lending and debt constraint by way of the Prosperity Project, and now with the show Undefeated. And just to back it up a little bit, this is something that I have lived and continue to live, and it weighs on me heavily. Debt constraint, especially from student debt, is no joke. And a lot of the especially negative stigma comes from the fact that a lot of people think that it's good debt, right? We've talked about this before. And because there is so much variance in what this experience looks like for people, there are absolutely people who have good experiences with it, but then there are so many like myself who have the total opposite. So to clue y'all in on something that's a tad personal, but I don't mind sharing because I'm all about paying my knowledge and lived experience forward to help the next person. I have experienced what it's like to be literally traumatized and to have, psychological impacts resulting from falling behind on student loans and just how much that can bring down your quality of life. So with today's episode, we're going to be shining a light on those specific aspects of this lived experience. And I couldn't think of a more qualified person to join me for this conversation than who we have as our guest. So to share with you a little bit about her before I bring her on, we've got Dr. Kiki Ramsey in the virtual building. She is a positive psychologist and executive coach on a mission to help people create their own happiness and transform their lives and careers. She's committed to helping ambitious women get from A to where they want to be and achieve their goals by managing the tension between work, life, and everything else that comes in between. As a working mother, wife, and entrepreneur, she knows firsthand the challenges of juggling multiple priorities, all while striving to succeed in her life and career. She understands the stress, the imposter syndrome, and the feelings of imbalance that can come with it all, and has guided thousands of women to create their happiness and discover purpose while finding harmony and success. So pleased to join me for Undefeated today is Dr. Kiki Ramsey. Welcome.
Thank you, Bree. Yay. So excited.
Well, let's go ahead and just shout her out because I know she'll be watching. Shout out Auntie Iris, Irish Great and Spanish, the who made sure that we got the chance to know each other and is, to thank for us being able to have this episode today.
Absolutely. Hey, Iris, sister friend. Thank you.
All right. Well, so I know I always read off like the textbook version, right, of the bios for the people we feature, but from your own words, let's go ahead and get into your story,
Yeah.
your career background, what led you to this, as I call it, being in the business of positivity,
Yeah.
and then connect dots from there.
Yeah, no, this is great. So thank you, first of all, for having me on. I'm excited about what we're gonna talk about today because we're gonna get into it. And so for me, it was a long road. So I grew up with a mom who was addicted to drugs, sleeping night after night on a couch in a crack house. And at about age 10, I decided that that wasn't going to be my life. I wanted better for my life. I saw better for my life. I knew intrinsically that I had a purpose. And so I made a promise to myself that no matter what bad things happened in my life, I was going to be successful. And I think from that point on, the strive for success and happiness was just embedded in me because I made that promise. But a lot of times when we make promises to ourselves, we think things are going to just go smooth, right? And that's not how it happens. And so I ended up pregnant at 16 years old, had my first child at 17, and I was faced with, what do I do with my life? And so for me at that point, education was the only way, but I didn't have no money. So talk about, what we're going to be talking about today. I didn't have any money. And so I was blessed to find a school that if I got in, they would give me a full tuition scholarship. and that school was Berea College. And so I started my educational journey, but I started it with a child, which came with expenses and all of that. And so I went through school. I ended up going to get a master's in social work. From there, I ended up going to get another master's in positive psychology coaching, and then finally a PhD in business psychology. All during that time, I'm really trying to figure out how to find my own happiness, how to find my purpose, what's my purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
Still trying to help my mom overcome a lot of her issues, which then grew into a love of helping other women try to find their purpose and succeed. And so, with all of that, I'm here. I ultimately started a business, my first company, where I go around the country and world and speak and empower women to create their own happiness and transform their life and career. And then my second company was built out of the pandemic during the George Floyd murders and just so many others. It's called the Positive Psychology Coaching and Diversity Institute, AKA PCADI. And we do diversity and leadership coaching and training in organizations across across the US. But our method is called Positively Diverse Leadership. And that is helping people learn how to use and utilize DE&I from a place of strength. And so it's been a long journey, lots of twists and turns, but the positivity came with just even me helping my mom to try to figure out how to help her get to where she wants to be. And we were talking off script about like the glass half empty or the glass half full. And I've always been a glass half full person because I really believe that there's so much goodness in the world for us, but we have to be the people to go out and find it.
We do. And I did not know that about your story. So I think major congrats on turning what usually can be a very disruptive life circumstance into this beautiful thing. I mean, of course, every child is a blessing. But to enter that chapter of life as a baby yourself, right, at 16,
Okay.
always, just another level of being dealt challenging cards. And so I
Yeah.
think that, your attitude is just such a shining example of how we should respond. Because I believe it was Captain Jack Sparrow cracking up that I'm actually quoting him right now.
That's
It's like,
funny.
problem is not the problem, it's your attitude about the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is pivotal, right? Because
Yes.
we all have so many reasons to internalize and to spew hatred and to harm the next person or to try to block the next person's blessings. Because if I was affected, why should you have it better than me, right? Some
Right.
people tend to think and operate like that. And so I love that you are bucking back against that and saying, no, we're going to channel this into positivity. And like the definition of lifting as you climb, helping women to the thousands, to the tune of thousands, overcome things along their journeys. And I think that's so understated, especially for us Black women, right? Always just being looked at as like the hard asses and the people
Yeah.
who, got a chip on our shoulder and, the bitter stereotypes and all these things. And you're just like, we are not doing that. We are going to keep it positive and keep it real, but not, not be false positive. I'm sorry, not be, what is it? Toxically
Yeah.
positive.
Toxic,
Yeah.
toxic positivity.
Positivity, right. And
Yeah.
we're going to be empowering. So as far as debt is concerned, I'd love to get more into that vein, like hearing if you had worked with any clients who have come to you specifically motivated because of their debt struggles and the trauma that's played out because of it.
Absolutely. I let me first start with myself, right? You know what I'm saying? So besides clients, I had to go through my own journey of like overcoming and and I say overcoming because I think part of, dealing with debt is dealing with all the, like you talked about, the trauma that comes along with debt and trying to figure out like how do you move forward past that in your mindset to like overcome and get to a better situation or to manage the situation that we call debt. And so for me, growing up the way I grew up, I mean, poor, living in the projects and stuff like that, the signs and the messaging was money don't grow on trees, right? And also with my mom being addicted to drugs, we went without certain things a lot of times because, you know, the money was spent elsewhere. We was never hungry. We always had some kind of shelter. It might have not been our shelter, but
Mhm.
you know, it might have not necessarily belonged to us, but we had that. And so I learned very young to spend money. And I didn't realize this until I started this process where I call like reflecting on your past and really connecting the dots. And I connected the dots one day because me and my husband had got into this huge argument about me going to the grocery store and spending too much money. And so for me, when I was younger, my mom would give us money on occasion. She would get money and she would give us like $10 here, $20 there.
Mhm.
And to begin with, I was a saver because it's what I learned in school. You know, you save your money and those kinds of things. So I was a saver. But my mom being who she was and having the addiction, she realized I was saving my money. So she would come and borrow the money back from me. And
Mm.
when she did that, it triggered something in me to be like, oh, okay, well, if she's going to do that, I might as well spend it, right? I might as well get the benefit of it and spend it. I mean, it's, you know, it's cause and effect. And
Yeah.
so I started spending the money. So anytime she would give it to me, I don't care what it was, I would go to the store, buy some candy, buy some trees, buy some toys or whatever. I would always spend it because my fear is that she's going to come take it from me.
Yeah.
I took that into my adulthood. So
Mhm.
anytime money would come to me, I would get rid of it right away. Whether it was paying bills, whether it was spending on something frivolous, I could never see money in my bank account because subconsciously I'm thinking it's going to get taken from me anyway, so I might as well spend it. And so that habit caused me to get into a rack of credit card debt. And then being a single mother for about 8 years before I met my husband, going
Mhm.
through all the schooling. Yes, some of my schooling was free. However, I got student loans to pay for my living expenses.
Yeah.
And so it was as if I still was getting student loans. It didn't necessarily all go to school, but it went for me to survive and to make it through. Multiply that times 4 degrees, Bree. Right?
Oh, Owen.
Multiply that times 4 degrees, and you end up with a mountain of debt. So the credit card debt, the mountain of student debt, and just debt in general, because I just would spend my money. It came to a head, and it was something so simple that I would go to the store and I'd spend too much money, and my husband was like, "No, you can't go to the store no more." And I'm
Mm.
like, "What you mean? Like, who you gonna tell me I can't go to the grocery store no more? Like, what? What?" And he was like, "Yeah, because you don't stay on budget and we have a budget." You talk about somebody pissed,
Mm.
girl. I was like, I ain't cooking in. Well, if I can't go to the store, I ain't cooking. And I can remember one day so vividly, he had gone to the store and everything like that. And I needed to cook. And I came to him and I was like, "So what you want to do with this chicken? You bought it. What was your plans for the chicken?"
Mhm.
Right. And I just played it in my head. I was so mad, but he was trying to correct a situation that needed to be corrected and that had been there for so long. And I had to eventually, for me, seek some therapy
Mhm.
to overcome that. But I grew up with a very poverty mindset
Yeah.
around money and how to treat money and how to handle money. And so it's been a really funny and rocky road, but I will say that I have learned a lot of lessons about money, and I'm in a much, much, much better place. And I believe I've been trusted with more money because I've learned some lessons and I've gone through and I've dealt with the trauma and still dealing, right? Because it doesn't always automatically go away, but still dealing with the trauma that was
Yeah.
caused in my life with, as it can pertains to money.
Mm. Oh my goodness, you said a mouthful.
I
And
did.
that 4 degrees, like you could not be the more quintessential guest because like we talk often in the Prosperity Project when we do demos, speaking engagements, whatever, like we're constantly laying it out like a chart. Like, okay, step one, we come to the game vastly under-resourced because
Mm.
generational poverty has been a thing since enslavement.
Yes.
And so we're starting out with less, having to do more with it. And so we are prime pickings for debt and for taking on these loans because everybody and their mama promised us that degrees were the way. And once upon a time, that was the only way. Before the dawn of the internet and the creator economy, that really was like your singular path to prosperity and
Yeah.
financial success. But then it's like, okay, you come out, you graduate, where the offers at? Where's the pay increase? Where are the bonuses? Oh, waiting on the other side of the next degree, right? That everyone tells you to go get the master's, the doctorate, what have you. And you're thinking, okay, all right, everyone says it's going to pay off with these earnings, so I'm going to go do it. And then you take that next step. And then in the event of, trying to start a family or having a family, and you've got this debt that has a death grip on your finances, that has its name on your paychecks before they even get into your account. And now you're trying to make do with so little, and then setting the next generation up for the same circumstances, and on the cycle goes. And I just really like, it gets me hot when I hear people who talk about like degrees are just this magic promised like golden ticket to the promised land. And again, like we talked about offline, people who have the nerve to fix their lips to talk about debt being a good thing or saying student debt is good debt. Y'all, let me be like crystal clear. Okay, this would be the part if you and I were having an AB conversation in real life where I'd break the fourth wall and turn to the camera. I'm already doing that.
Right.
Please understand that this is real life trauma for a lot of people, right? I think there are certainly people who have had glowing experiences and the debt truly was a means to an end and it was minimally invasive, if at all. They were able to settle it and move on. But in too many cases, this is just chaos run amok. I mean, I speak from experience, living this still. A lot of people assume because I've done all these things, started an org, working on, our app, the show that I'm talking about it, that it's just automatically behind me. I'm still living in the trenches and it messes me up, when I think about how incapacitated I am and how I'm selling my own potential short because I have to figure out how to move my whole life around, to satisfy and like keep these payments going, which are like grossly beyond what I can genuinely afford. And so it's like you look even further back in the cycle than that. And it's like shame on these colleges who are setting these outrageous prices that only the 1% can healthily afford, you know what I mean? But saying, oh, but it's for everybody. No, this is very much a gap widening institution at this point. So
Yeah.
I have to get on my soapbox right quick and speak on
No.
that because I continue to see a lot of ignorance and just misinformation and people who just they can't relate. And so they're speaking out of turn. So just for the 9 millionth time, I might even engrave it on my tombstone. Please stop calling student debt good debt. Thank you. Okay.
And please. Right. Thank you. And thank you. Right.
Yeah.
No, it's so funny because me and my husband was having this conversation. And before I embarked upon like some of the degrees that I have, I should have thought harder, but you only know what you know at the time. And
Mhm.
then you choose to listen to who you want to listen to, right?
Mhm.
I had for undergrad, I did child development and family studies. At first, I was business, but accounting too kind of shook me up. And so I couldn't, I switched. But then when I went into child development and family studies, it's like, okay, what are you going to do with that? And then so I ended up going to grad school and getting a master's in social work. Now,
Mhm.
inherently, I think social work is a fine profession, right? I mean, I have a master's in it. However, we already know that the majority of social workers, it is hard for you to make like a lot of money or decent money in that area.
Mhm.
And so I knew that going in, but I just thought that I would be able to, to fix that. It wasn't fixable without me doing something completely different or having a side hustle or doing these things. It was hard. I mean, the hustle was hard. So when my husband went to school, He first went to school for engineering, but he changed to art. He was like, art. What? How am I going to make the money? So the dichotomy between what that the degree cost and what I can make in this degree is
Yes.
vastly different. And I think that when it comes to student debt, the schools don't discriminate. They're like, hey, we're offering you these programs. We have to be smart about if that's what we are choosing to do. We have to be smart to figure out, what do I want my lifestyle to look like in the end? And is this degree going to help me get there ultimately, right? And I can tell you on the basic level, when you go into social work, you're not making 100K. You're not making over 100K when you start. You may ultimately get there in your career, because I know plenty of social workers who've gotten there or very close to it, but some of them are not even doing pure social work, right? And then artists, there's a reason why they say starving artists, right? Like
Not an exaggeration.
right, there's a reason for that term. And so my husband, although he still has his amazing art skills, he makes his money from computer science, because guess what? He went back to school to get that, that trade.
Right.
And so I think that we have to be really, really smart, because the school, they are money making, even though they are, most of them are nonprofit, they are money making institutions. So their goal is
Billions
to,
of dollars in the bank.
exactly. So their goal is to make money, because they are a business. And we have to be discerning a lot of times, because they ain't gonna tell us.
Bless you for that word, discernment, because that's another sticking point. So many families, especially in our community, and I've seen this too firsthand. I come from a long line of, proudly, traditionally educated folks, right? All the way back to my grandparents were their first generation. So parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody, except for my younger brother and my family has a college degree. And the shaming that went down when he went left, right? He made that discerning choice and realized, I'm not serious about academics. Like I know I'm gifted, but this is not where my calling is. So he dropped out after a term and unfortunately, hanging with the wrong crowd, made some dicey decisions, and it was very much a blurred line. But I think at the heart of that, what was lacking that really impacted his odds of success was a support system that loved him and showed him that they loved him unconditionally, regardless of if he had a shiny, Latin rooted degree to hang on his wall, right? Like he took a different path. And I've told him this since that was all going down almost 10 years ago. I was like, you're there's nothing wrong with you as a person. Like the problem is not that you didn't go to college, it's that there were not enough people who were open-minded enough immediately around you to help you figure out the next best alternative, because everyone just kept trying to shove it and like redirect him. And, he would try to seek advice, but the response would always be like, well, just go back, even if you have to go to state school, community college, just get you a degree. And I just, oh my God, it makes me just want to like just do some things that aren't nice to mention on here. So I'm like, it just bothers me that people it's like their mindset is what pulled back, right? It's literally an indoctrination and people who cannot divorce themselves from an outdated way of thinking. And that I'm just like, there's too much at stake for your old school ass mentality to be the deciding factor. You know what I mean? And I'm so proud of him for continuing on this path. And even though like he has very much struggled and fallen down a number of times, again, because of that lack of support system, he's still staying the course and he's getting it together. And now he's excelling in golf and being able to be like an instructor. And, I mean, his A-list dream is to make it in the PGA, but he's, even if that doesn't happen, like he still knows that this is what he was designed and built to do. And he's leaning into it. And I never saw him ever put a fraction of that effort towards school. And so, I feel like that just reassures me in terms of the work that I'm leading and how I look at it for when I do get on the other side of these damn loans and can have my own family and teach them, right? And not say you're an embarrassment or a shame to this family if you don't go to college. F that. No, I
Yeah.
want you to find and fulfill your purpose. And there's a whole acronym I've created for this. And when I talk to high schoolers and college students, it's called HIRE, HIRE. And
Mhm.
it stands for honor your skills and abilities, identify avenues for impact, research monetization methods, and evaluate the ROI of whatever that educational path is going to deliver for you. So quit just blindly walking into somebody's office and signing your name on 1,000 FAFSA forms and
Yeah.
just saying, well, a degree is the only way. And if I gotta pay, I gotta pay. I should
Yeah.
train like that.
Yeah.
But,
You
you know,
should.
and people and parents enabling this whole broken down system. And I'm
Yeah.
like, we've seen what happened with Operation Varsity Blues. They literally pulled the curtain back and people are still clinging to these outdated beliefs around it. So yeah, I feel like you've touched on it, and it's like with me looking to your example, like, okay, I see the things that she's got going and the conversation she's having and what this looks like in her family, and being able to use that as like my North Star of, it absolutely can get better. Like seeing that you've made it to the other side just fills me with hope because I see it as a collective win. When one of us gets out, we are all, that's a win we can all celebrate. Like, okay, that's one
Absolutely.
person that they didn't take down. That's one
Yeah.
person who's still living, still breathing to tell their story and was
Absolutely.
able to take life back on their own terms, even if they had to lose a little bit of time in the process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so funny. I love, kudos to your brother because I understand it from I understand his situation from a different standpoint as a mother, right? I'm a mother. I have an adult son, Tamazier, and he went to college. And so my mindset, being a person who went to college, I mean, like I said, 4 degrees in, right? I believe in education, right? I don't necessarily have to believe in educational debt to believe in education, right? I believe in education in a sense of it don't have to be college though, right? But I didn't think that way going in because it was the way that I did it. I went to college. His dad went to college. I mean, like you said, you have a family full of educated. We were the first. And so I'm like, this education is one of the things I feel like helped us get out of bad situations and be able to make a better life for ourselves, right? So I truly believe in education, but and when my son went to school, I'm like, okay, this is what we do. We go to college, we do these things. But when he dropped out, I was like, kind of like your parents and family members, like, what are you gonna do now? What you gonna do? But over the time, I started, suggesting to him potentially different avenues to get the education because I believe that in order for us to go further, we need some kind of education, whether it's from a formal institution or not, right? Because I don't want the student loans, but what are you going to do? And so the beautiful thing about what he ended up doing is he ended up going to school and getting his CDL. They
Mm.
paid him to do that, right? There's all these different avenues, but in the beginning, I didn't get it until I was like, okay, well, if you're not going to go to school because that's not for you, which is not for everybody, college does it's not the only way, like for people to get it. So he ended up, doing a couple of boot camps for coding to learn, code and to become a computer scientist. And then he also went and got his CDL, which they paid him for. Now he
Wow.
makes, 100K, whatever, driving, 18 wheelers, right? So there's different ways, but I had to be, like you said, Bree, flexible and open up my mind to say, there is another way, right? There's another way to get the education that we need and to not then go into astronomical amounts of debt. And I think that that's important. And you said one thing that I want to make a point to. Us as Black people, many of us did not have the luxury of growing up and our parents saving for our college fund,
Correct.
right? We didn't have that. We come from enslaved people. A lot of the things that we built in this country, we don't have access to anymore, including money, right? Like we don't have access to that. And so the majority of our families do not have a college fund versus our counterparts. A lot of our counterparts, their families may have a college fund for them. Not all, because I know plenty of people who also don't, but we didn't grow up with that. And we didn't even grow up learning how to save for our child's college.
Right.
If we grew up when we learned how to save, it wasn't for that. It was to get through to the next month. I mean, maybe even the next week. And so I think that the trauma of where we are as people goes way deeper and way farther than what we even, can recognize in today's day and age. But I think that going forward with the knowledge that you're putting out to your audience and everything, I think is it's good for us to know and to think about how can we change the next generation or even the generation that we are. Number one, give them knowledge. Number two, if you do think that any kind of education is necessary, not saying that it has to be college,
Right.
what can we do as parents or people who love the young ones coming up? What can we do to help them to ease the burden? So like I have two children who are coming up, right? I don't know if they want to go to college, but they got a college fund,
Mhm.
right? They have an educational fund
There you go.
to try to figure out what is the right path. Because if I can ease them from going into debt for education, then that is what I'm going to do. And so I think that's important for us to kind of know, because I would love for us to not go into debt, just to get to be at the base level of being decent, having a decent living in life and a decent start, to not start off with debt.
Yes. Because I mean, it's really like trying to compete in the Olympics with a physical disadvantage. I'm not kidding. I mean, it's like there's so many comparisons, draining the ocean with a teaspoon, trying to paint a wall with a toothbrush, right? Like you're just ill-equipped is the bottom
Mhm.
line. And I love that you were able to be the other side of that coin and speak on it from the parental lens and taking that step, because I think when you ask people to change their mindset, it's almost like you're asking them to change a part of themselves that they've gotten so comfortable to living with, perhaps for their whole life.
Mhm.
And it has sustained them, right? I know that for previous generations, Gen X all the way back, it was you keep your head down, you do what you're told, you get your education so you can be somebody. And I feel like millennials and Gen Z and Alpha, like we have totally just like turned that on its head. And we're like, no, we're bucking back, we're clapping back. So for us, it comes a lot more intrinsically, but I can see hints of it trying to come out in the Gen Xers in my family, but it's like it keeps getting overridden by what they
Mhm.
have been accustomed to and what they had to do for survival. Like I give them that because there was no wiggle room for like fighting the power on a day-to-day basis. Like, yeah, you had Public Enemy, like the rap groups, but if you were out here trying to make it in corporate, just going through the everyday pipeline, there was absolutely no wiggle room for that. So I give grace, but I also, it's a challenge, right? I'm like, okay, now let's meet in the middle on this and make sure that we can advance together.
Mhm.
Um, I promised you I was going to keep us on time because I know you said meetings are happening today. So in our closing few minutes, I just want to, give you the floor to share any final parting words of advice and action. I always ask that of every guest, and then I close out with my little Breeism 2 cents. So what would your advice and action be just to sum it up?
You know, um, when it comes to debt and I say overcoming, but just being able to cope with and get to the other side, I had to realize that there ain't nobody coming to save me, right? Ain't nobody coming to save us. And I had to take responsibility. And although the blame, some blame might not be on me, maybe on institution and stuff like that, that ain't nobody still coming to save us, right? And so we have to arm ourselves with the knowledge
Yes.
in order to overcome these circumstances. And that's one of the things that over the years I did. And I started small, right? I had on my podcast, I talked about some of the lessons that I even learned in this last year. And I
Mm,
talked about the beauty of saving, right?
mm,
Saving money. And I'd rather see money in my bank account than have a thing, than to have, possessions and stuff like that. But one of the things that I learned a long time ago as it pertains to debt is that you don't, and this maybe people might not like what I'm about to say, but I don't and wouldn't pay all of my debt before I have money in the savings. I do both. Because
Mm.
you ain't gonna leave me without zero,
Without
but I'm gonna give
anything,
you
right?
all my money. Like,
No,
I'm
that's
not
right.
gonna be on empty, right? My bank account is not gonna be on zero and I pay you all my money. Yes, I may owe it and I'm gonna pay my debts, right? But I give to me first.
Yes.
I give to me first, and you're still going to get your money, but you won't get your money if I'm not also giving to me. And so I say that because there's so many things that happen in our world, so many emergencies, and do you know how many people don't have $500 for an emergency? My husband just got a flat tire on his Tesla the other day, and it cost him $400 to get a new freaking tire for his car.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some of us who do not have that in the bank. And it's not a judgment, it's a
Right.
call to say, hey, take care of yourself, your family, your immediate list. Get to that comma club. And that comma club is the $1,000 mark.
Yes.
Get to the comma club as fast as you can. And then also still put some money on your debts, right? But do not put money on your debts if you're not paying yourself first. So I was I'm so passionate about that because I would pay all of my debts and then we'd be left with none of the money in the bank. And then
Yeah.
we were not equipped for emergencies that happen, which happen all the time, Bree. Like they happen all the time, whether
Of
it's a
course,
car
Murphy's Law.
tire,
When it's the least opportune time is when they go always happen.
when they gonna always happen. And so I'm like, save your money, whether it's $10 a month, I don't care, right? Like put some money in the bank, open
Mm.
up a Capital One 360 high yield savings account
Yep.
that you can't get to every single day and transfer into your checking and just put some money over there automatically every single month and continue to still pay money on your debts, but don't one should not happen without the other.
Yes, ma'am. I support that wholeheartedly because I started this journey with the Ramsey School of Finance, and he is adamant, like every single cent when your
No.
debt goes to that. So I lived that for several years, and like you said, every month being wiped clean with like barely two nickels to rub together for anything else. And so now I've had no choice, right? I'm like, I'm nearly 30. Like the fact that I didn't have a high yield savings or any sort of brokerage account until like I experimented with them before, but I wasn't consistently
Mm.
committed to cultivating them until like less than 6 months ago. And so I was
Mm.
like, something has got to be different. So I honor and receive that. And I would just tie this up with my Briism as don't let your mindset make you a menace. Okay. Like seriously, my pastor says your quality of life can never exceed your level of thinking. So just I'm imploring our audience. I know we have a wide range of generations and age and gender and everything backgrounds, race obviously, but we just want to really double down on get with it. Like in 2024, there are so many thriving paths ahead for educating our youth, and we owe it to them to set them up for success. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to entail, them taking minimal or no debt. So
Yeah.
thank you again, Dr. Kiki
Thank
Ramsey,
you,
for being our guest, and
Brittany.
shout out again to Irish Straight and Span, and also to my baby brother Ant. Proud of you, dude, and thank you for giving me so much great content to turn into episodes and have conversations just like these. So until next time, thank you all for tuning in.